As hard as I try, I always have technical difficulties. Yeah. All right, shall we begin? So there's still, I'm pretty sure Taylor showered this morning, so you can sit by him. It'll be okay. You got this nice cushy couch. If anybody wants to come forward, they can. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. So I got the recording going, so that's good. Let's sit here. My dear friend. Do you know how hard it was to get her to do this? And my 10 years of getting people like Richard Bushman and even Catherine Knight Sontag, a famous poet, all kinds of people. She's been the hardest one to say yes.
They'll know why.
That's not true. But I am so grateful that you're here. So welcome. Oh, you know what? Ed, sorry. Do your thing. I apologize.
Welcome. Really happy when Jay brings people with all the kind of light and love and goodness into our home. It's good for us. Okay, thank you. And there's a bathroom right down this hall, and there's a bathroom in that corner. And if you need anything, just let me know. But welcome, and looking forward to it. Thanks, Jay. Take it away.
Thank you, Ed. Sorry. So Ed and Kristen offer their home often open their home often. Did I say often enough? To this group, and very grateful. And I know that everybody who comes is grateful that you do that. So appreciate it. Where's Kristen? There you go. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So as I was saying, it was hard to get Suzanne here. I'm grateful she's here. She has two of her lovely children here. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Jesse, and this is Lou. You're the two youngest of the kids.
The youngest.
Yeah.
Wow. There you go. And here, I'll just do a 360 real quick. Here's the rest of the group. Thank you, Taylor Webb, for managing our people at home. Appreciate that very much. And let me just make sure I don't forget anybody and anything. Oh, and thanks to the Faith Matters folks who are letting me use their Zoom account. So I appreciate that. And to all of you, because this is a conversation that we have. It's not a fireside. It's not anything but an opportunity to have a chat. And tonight, unlike sometimes, we are actually going to have a chat. I'm going to ask Suzanne questions, and she's going to, under oath, give her honest answer. But before we begin, we're going to have a musical number. I asked Ann and Giles, Florence, or you put over there. And they're going to come up here, and we're going to move the screen. And then they invited Lorene to accompany, and Kristen is going to also. So
We impressed Kristen.
you impressed her with your music or pressed her? So we'll have a musical number from them. And again, Ann and Giles have known you how long?
I think I attended Nathan at 71.
Well, he was born in
72.
72. So you
72,
said
72.
72, yeah.
So I've known you since the early 70s.
Yeah, long time.
Lucky me.
And this is a young crowd. Well, young crowd. You may not know this song, but we picked it in honor of Suzanne. So you can.
And what are you passing out?
It's the words.
For
Sing along.
which song? So I can
Teach your children.
teach your children well. So if you're at home, you can look that up.
All you young people, you know this song, right? Crosby, Stills.
Taylor's everybody joined?
Yes.
Okay, great.
You gonna sing, Suzanne? We need your harmony. Okay.
Well, as we sometimes say, we may be old, but we got the best music.
And the best hats.
Yes.
The best hats. So you guys gonna stand up, right? Kristen and Lorraine, so you can be seen by the heard. Thank you.
Do you want to give your little introduction? that why we chose this for Suzanne?
Yeah,
That good?
that way, a little closer if you
Are
can.
we on Zoom?
Yeah, you are, but if you get closer. Yeah.
Is good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two things might be said here. First of all, when I made a copy of the lyrics, they got slightly tilted in the machine, so just lean a little to the right, touch the person next to you, or just turn the paper, whichever is easier. So that's number one. Number two, there's a little yellow line across that, about the fifth line down, and it's a descant. If you know the song, then you know what's going on here. But it's sung together with the third verse that begins with, and you of tender years. So if you feel like singing along, fine, join in with us, we'd love it. Because the more harmony, the better. Because somehow Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Used to Be Young have produced some really pretty remarkable harmonies.
And they used to be young, that group.
Back when they were. In fact, Joe Walsh, you know Joe Walsh of the Eagles, one of his famous lines. Anybody know the Eagles here? You're still. At any rate, Joe Walsh said, I had more fun playing. I had more fun in my 20s playing.
I had more fun being 20 in the 70s than 70 in the 20s. That's where we
I
are.
need help with my joke.
How old are you?
Actually, next week I'll be 79.
Woo, seriously?
So happy birthday, Suzanne. Okay, so
I'm sorry, I know we're taking too long, but what you failed to say is that Suzanne has so taught her children well and taught other people's children well that I know you weren't perfect, but I know you're shaking your head, but it's perfect for you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
agree.
yeah, we tried to think of the song that would fit Suzanne. My first thought was Leonard Cohen's Suzanne Takes You Down by the River. Not particularly appropriate, but a cool song nevertheless. And so in this case, we'll do our song. And what you have to imagine is a wonderful pedal steel guitar, which I promised Anne I wouldn't try to imitate, but it goes something like this. That kind of thing.
So much for keeping your promise.
Every time you hear this plain guitar, that's what you're doing.
Now, do we come in on like a second or third verse, or are we supposed to start at the beginning? Whenever we want. Okay.
You who are on the road. That you have been found. And so pick up yourself. Because the past is just a goodbye. There's your way. If I leave still, it's slowly over. Then all your dreams, or maybe the one you know why. Stand by, don't be cry. Again, steel guitar pops in here. And you. A tender years, all the they see the before they it's slowly over. Them on your dream,
The one you know well. Well, everybody. I know it's-
We'll need a prayer after that.
Well, I did ask Kristen Iverson to offer prayers. Our host, thank you.
Our Creator God, we thank you that we can be gathered here tonight in community. We thank you for the diverse people who are here, the diverse wider communities that we're in. We're thankful for parents, we're thankful for children. And we ask a blessing on this evening that peace and love and understanding will be here. We ask a blessing on our family of humankind and of earth kind, and ask thy spirit to be over all in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kristen. Kristen, do you want to put a plug into your Dante piece? group?
Yes. Join the Gandhi Alliance for Peace and help us figure out other ways we can bring more peace into the world. So GandhiAlliance.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Does anybody know what today? Oh, wait, I gotta thank Lindsay Daniels Jacqueline for being willing to film this. I thought it was that important. I've never done this before. I wanted a professional cinematographer to film this moment.
Do you have the slimming lens on?
She's got the age reduction and the slimming lens. This, on New Year's Day, Suzanne turned 70? 80. I can't remember.
79.
79. That's good, 79.
Giles and I,
79.
the geezers, officially, right?
Anyway, so that's a wonderful thing. So thank you, Lindsay. Lindsay, your website is what?
Lindsay Daniels Photography.
Yeah, an excellent photographer, outdoor photographer and cinematographer. She's done some award-winning work. So I'm very honored and especially happy that she moved down on my street. So that's really cool. I am wearing my African-made shirt in honor of Suzanne. I thought she might even come more decked out in African wear, but
Well,
you look
This is
stylish.
Missouri from Kenya, but normally I wear dresses the Africans give me. As Michelle and Peter can attest.
Yes, thank you for coming. They're also serving the branch with Susan and I. Susan's been there the longest, from the very beginning, probably. I think.
So Jay has a tendency to drop his voice. So if any of you are hard of hearing like me, come on up. But that's the reason I snuck up here in front of you. I'm sorry.
And you're gonna prompt me, right?
Yes, he
If I
dropped
get
it.
too
Well,
quiet, you're gonna
I'm up
look
here
at
now,
me
so
and
I-
say something. Thank you, Giles, because I need that reminder. So did I already ask what this day is? What we're starting today?
Women's. Is that? what you're
Yeah,
referring
Women's
to,
History
or-
Month. It's
or-
women.
June is opening, which everybody would rather be in, right? So thanks for coming.
We're having our own beach party here. I don't need to go to Dune. Anyway, yeah, Women's History Month. So that's, in thinking about that, I asked Catherine Knight Sontag, who also lives in my neighborhood and is done a lot of thinking and meditating over the years and writing books and poetry on the divine feminine, mother in heaven. And I thought, starting out Women's History Month, what an ideal time to have Catherine read one of her poems about this very thing, because we don't talk or think about this woman much for some reason. So I wanted to give her some honor as we start Women's History Month. So come on up here, Catherine. You take this seat.
Yeah, I didn't pick a poem that was about my mother, but I can.
You can,
I can find it if you'd like that.
yeah, I think that would be good, or, you know, whatever you want to give, it's fine, or you can give one on each.
Let me pull it up here.
They can get you books on Amazon probably and other,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Places.
Amazon is
yeah.
a few local bookstores as well. King's
King's
English.
English. Good.
Googling myself really fast. So I can find my photo. No big deal.
Wish I could do that.
Catherine with a K.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lori. Helping her Google her name, yeah.
Love to
It
hear
is what
what
it
you
can.
selected though.
Yeah,
Okay, I can do that one.
Which one?
She selected one.
that she selected.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine too, yeah.
So yeah, I'll do the one I brought and then
Okay.
there's a short one
Afterwards
too
you
that
can
I
do
can
that.
do.
Yeah.
Okay. This one is about an experience I had at the Great Salt Lake.
Oh, that's-
Pending grief at the Great Salt Lake, a ritual. Clouds unspool above light, departing. Salt makes diviners of goals, tiny archways of bones, sockets like pools, long emptied by sun's fire. A circle of strangers, we imbue our grief into stick, feather, and stone. I long to be emptied, to not fear this cold, which is to not fear its memory. This lake is memory. The couple next to me sees into the watery expanse, their son alive again, or still gray as the waves. Salt is so many wings. Hair whips my face. I loose myself like the sand, lifting in eddies, blurring the line of earth and sky. One firmament abstracting the other. Lean into gales, release vestiges to the brine, wail. Who is to say we do not feel the edges of the made world, that we are not recomposed as wind covers us with her orbiting tail? I am faceted, not cold, scalloped, an open palm. Sulfur in our noses, crystals caking boots, the sting of lake inside millions of rib cages, saying, here is the aura of the world, saying, this is what it is to be inside the light.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You do something. You do
So yeah, Catherine, if you want to do it, find one on that you feel good about. And a mother in heaven, that'd be great. All right. I gotta get to my other notes now. Because we're gonna, anything you want to start out saying?
Yeah, well, you don't have to prompt me, but you can.
Okay.
I'm only here because of Jane and Jane and Giles and Aaron. Otherwise, I would not have done this, but I love them so much. I said yes. So I'll just, and like I said, we'd all rather be at Dune, but thanks for sacrificing. So one thing you have to know about me from the beginning is that since I was a child, I've really believed in the reality of heavenly parents. And I have had a testimony, so to speak, of Joseph Smith and many other things. It came in very wonderful ways when I was younger. And even though my lifestyle deviated many times from that initial testimony, I always had it. So that's important to know, because throughout my life, I've relied on that heavenly assistance and truly believed I've received it.
And you're talking about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? Because we have
Christ of
people
Latter-day
that
Saints. Yes,
aren't members that
But
attend this, so. that's
I'm
one
also
piece.
very, I was just telling a person today that probably the most righteous person I know is a Palestinian refugee in Rahat, who I was visiting one time, and he came from work, home from work at midnight. He'd been driving a cement truck all day.
You were visiting in Palestine.
In Palestine. I've had these friends for 38 years and I am in daily contact with them, which is really horrible because of what's going on. But he went to mosque. He got home at 1 a.m. and he went over to the mosque. And he and his wife, Nawal, my friend, they have such a grand marriage. So I derive spirituality from many of the people. I have some friends, I spoke at an imperial potentate. Jesse accompanied me down to San Diego to speak at a Shriners thing, because I'm a great fan of the Shriners, and a lot of the kids I placed, including some of my own, had Shriners benefit. And I think some of the Shriners are the most spiritual people in the whole world. And I met a lady in Korea one time who was running a deaf orphanage in the hills. And I thought, wow, could I ever be that pious or righteous? A Dr. Suzanne, who works in Chennai, India, and helps with those afflicted by leprosy, who's a Seventh-day Adventist. So I don't think we have a monopoly on spirituality. I was just saying where
Yeah.
I fit in.
Yeah, your faith
is
tradition. Yeah.
That's my faith tradition. And there have been a lot of things I didn't like, but anyway. Second thing to know is that I have a very strong connection to my ancestors, all of whom were Mormon pioneers. And I spent 8 years writing and gathering their histories to give to my siblings for Christmas one time, because I have 8 siblings who are remarkable people and they have supported me throughout my life. So to give them a Christmas present one time, I presented them with the help of one of my brothers who paid for everything, the printing, with this book of ancestors. They're very real to me. I mean, I can talk to them, I can tell you who they are, I can tell you where they were born, and the things they went through to keep for their belief. So I don't know if they'd come down and slap me if I ever left the church. I don't know, but I really love them. So they're very real to me, and I was raised with that sense. And another thing is that my parents had integrity. And my dad was very civic oriented. He was a school teacher. We were just common folks. We lived in West Point, Utah. And we moved there because I have 7 brothers. My dad wanted them to learn how to do chores. And I was the only daughter for 16 years. And then I got a sister, and she's like my angel on my shoulder.
That was a ranch, right?
It wasn't a ranch. It was just land for animals.
Okay.
So my dad, and another really important thing is that we were very staunch Democrats. Now that's an important thing, because even back then it was worse in this state.
Worse.
I know, it's hard to believe. It is so hard to believe, but I campaigned because we were Democrats and we ran for office. They always lost, my dad, my uncles. But I campaigned for President Kennedy. I have a letter from him, which obviously he wrote himself and signed himself, thanking us for but it was just self-defeating at every level. Because people just laughed at us when we went around and took flyers, encouraged people to vote for Kennedy. But I think it really helped us in the sense that we developed kind of a tough skin. When my dad was called as patriarch of our state, there were people that said, now wait a minute, he can't be patriarch if he's a Democrat, because remember, this was the time when it was over the pulpit that you couldn't be a good member of the church and be a Democrat. So that it really impacted me, and it didn't drive me to be a stronger Democrat, because I believe in those ideals and I still am.
It's 8 o'clock.
Involved in the Democratic Party. But my dad had a gift. He had humor. He had a great personality, and he started in our little community. Remember all those little towns, Syracuse, Clinton, Roy, Sunset. he started a fun day to combine all those communities to come once a year and get together. So even before we were encouraged to go out into our communities, and get to know and love people, my dad was doing that just because that's the way he was. So all of my 7 brothers and my sister and I have grown up very, I say cause oriented, because when President Kennedy said, ask not what you can do for, your country could do for you. I really believe that. I agree. I was sort of a pinhead, didn't really get it, but I believed it. And so it has always been with me. It may be a little bit evangelistic sometimes, but I've always believed in getting involved. And so have my siblings. And we credit our dad with that, and with being Democrats in a very hostile environment. Letting them get to know us, that we were just normal people, but we were Democrats, that really set us apart. So another thing that is, my siblings, I told you, and their spouses have been a great support. And then I have friends who I don't deserve, but they still are my friends. And I'm very active in reading and the arts. I went to see BYU ballroom dancers last weekend, and I felt totally transformed. I went to see Swan Lake and reached Nirvana. It was just so fabulous. And I go to the symphony and I do whatever. I can't do any of those things, but boy, do I appreciate them. So everybody in this room has probably done things a lot more notable than I've done. And that is really the truth. I know, we all know, so many people involved in so many things. We could spend the whole night here talking about it. But there's one thing that people have not done as well as I have. They haven't done it with such great opposition. Because there's hardly ever been a time when I have served refugees or dealt with racism or LGBTQ issues that I haven't had personal opposition. And I felt it was important to mention that, not to be dramatic or corny, but just to say, you don't have to be smart. I know all of you, if we took a test right now, you'd have a higher IQ than I have. And you have tech savvy, and you have a million things that I don't have. But I had the desire to serve, and I trusted those instincts. So I was led to refugees since I was in junior high. I had pictures of Palestinian refugees on my wall in the 50s. Because I cut them out of a Life magazine. And then I started in 84 with Cambodian refugees, Vietnamese refugees, and now I'm totally involved with African refugees.
Talk about a little bit, what drew you to that, the very first, when you were a young adolescent girl, to refugees? What
Well, I read Exodus, and I was in love with Ari Ben Canaan, of course, and wanted to go live on a kibbutz. But then I got some more information on what was going on over there, and I realized that was largely propaganda. That there was, even though I love the land of Israel and the Israelis, but there was another side. So if I start singing Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell, forgive me. That's what I think of all the time. I've looked at life with both sides now. So I realized those Palestinians had been driven out of their lands. Now, a lot of them weren't, but a lot of them were. So I just had some compunction for them. Plus, they're such beautiful people. I think because I had, goofy skin and blonde eyebrows, I was just drawn to brown-eyed brown people with eyebrows. Well, the initial draw was the injustice of what had happened to them. And I didn't understand it like I do today, but I understood it enough to cut out things from Life magazine, put them on my wall.
So was it Life Mag? I mean, you didn't have Google back then, so, and you were in a small town. So
It was just a Life magazine.
That Life
I
magazine
read
was
about
your-
them in,
interesting.
and but after my mission in Germany, this was 1969, I had asked my mission president to write to the general authorities and ask if I could go to the Gaza Strip and work there. And so my family had to vote on it, and they turned me down. They said, no, we want her to come home. Gaza Strip. It's like my bishop president said, why would anybody want to go there? So that I could say something about that, because the priesthood to me, and I don't have I've never been one that said, oh, we've got to have the priesthood. I've never been upset by the patriarchy because of the wonderful men that I've known. You get to know any man who holds the priesthood and you're just gonna love him. I had a stake president one time who called me to be stake singles representative. And I told him that technically I couldn't because I sealed myself to Gerard Manley Hopkins. So I wasn't really single.
Good choice.
And he was so conservative, I swear, I thought he slept in his suit and tie. And I got to know him, just that little bit of humor. Then I got to know him and I found out he watched 24. I interviewed too. Do you remember 24 with Jack Bauer? And so I said to him, well, what are the perimeters of this calling? Can I shoot people in the kneecaps? What's going on? And we had this wonderful rapport. And it's been that way with every priesthood bearer that I've known. You just get to know them. And those preconceived notions you have about, you know, the patriarchy and all that stuff just disappears. So I don't know why I brought that up, but it just, I've just never had a problem with that and still don't. And knowing people like Giles and Jay gave a sacrament prayer the other day in our branch. People are usually pretty rowdy. We're trying to keep the kids quiet. And it was so moving. The spirit just engulfed that room. And on my bench, we were in tears. That's the kind of priesthood person that I like. So, well, of course, I wrote down a few things. So anyway, I'm just gonna say, go, if we could all stand up, and as I name things, you could sit down if you've dealt with them, or if you haven't dealt with them. And I'm just gonna name a few of them, and I'm making a risk of embarrassing my kids to death, but impaired fertility. This is since I've tried to be serving refugees in the gay community and help with racism, impaired fertility, rape, sexual abuse
These are things
that I've dealt with personally in my family,
in your family.
me and my children.
Okay.
Physical abuse, a lawsuit in which my home was foreclosed. I was state relief study president then. Children in jail numerous times. A child in prison off and on for the last 25 years. Not being able to see or visit at all 3 grandchildren. 2 grandchildren currently in DCFS custody. 3 children not sealed to me because I adopted them as a single parent, and children can't be sealed to mothers.
Patriarchy, just.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, you're right.
All right, Chloe.
Physical handicaps. Lil has cerebral palsy. I have another son with missing arms. Mental illness and mental handicaps, racism, queer, abortion, excommunication, adoption, accusation of sexual abuse, suicide attempts, cutter, severe alcohol and drug addiction, child threatened with a gun to its head, house surrounded by police and dogs, homelessness. I've had a child on the streets for 7 years, grandchild in a coma for 7 years, death of 2 grandchildren, one by suicide, the loss of 3 children. When I first became a single parent, those 3 children had to be placed somewhere else. My child driving down Redwood Road, no other reason than he was black, got picked up for not signaling for 3 seconds and he's still back in prison. Divorce, which was like heart surgery with a meat cleaver. It was way hard for me. Then I finally found love again, but he died of cancer shortly thereafter. So my mother would always say, don't date Suzanne, you'll die, you'll leave the church, or you'll become gay. That's what my mother used to say.
Nice.
So I'm fine as I am. So those are just a few of the things. Everybody has their house flood. Everybody has things happen to them, you know, illnesses and flat tires. But these things were really heartrending. And so when I was doing my service, when I was teaching my volunteer work with establishing heritage camps for kids adopted from overseas, or people that adopted African Americans and they didn't know squat about white privilege, I did camps. I was 25 years on the committee that selected children to go into families. I just did a lot of volunteer work. And of course, my refugees has all been volunteering, not saying that to flaunt, just that I never got paid and I had to continue serving them many times when my heart was broken and I was doing other things with my family.
So Suzanne, when you were first, how old were you when you were first married?
26.
26. And then you,
We had it paired fertility for 9 years.
yeah, and you.
Well, we
adopted-
always had it, but then we started to adopt.
And together you adopted 5?
7.
7 together while you were married. Okay.
And then we were finalizing the adoption of the other 3.
3 when.
And then when our marriage went.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could tell you things when my former husband, who Giles and Aaron know, was excommunicated for apostasy. It was our ward conference and the whole high council, excuse me, everybody always says that, so the whole high council walked in with the state presidency. They didn't say one word to me. I was sitting on the bench with 10 kids. And nobody
And that's
said,
not patriarchy. I'll just. put
no,
that out.
I know. Nobody said a word. But I'd known some of those men personally and the amazing things they did, so I didn't take it personally. But what we all know is you can be offended if you want to be offended. So one time I sent out a Christmas card and described all my children and several things. And I described myself as a combination of Daffy Duck, Mother Goose, and a Klingon woman warrior. And I think that's great.
We just call you Saint Suzanne.
No, I'm not Saint
That's
Suzanne,
all we call you.
but you can tell your friends that I did win 3rd place at a Star Trek convention as a Klingon. So you see, I really am important. Well, Jesse knows, we won 4th runner-up in the Dirty Fridge contest one time
I
too.
was gonna say, there was another contest.
There's a lot of contests. You have really credible people like that can read poetry and write poetry, but have you ever won?
Dirty Fridge. Yes.
Well, the thing is, so one of the pivotal moments of my life was in 65 when I met Dr. King. I heard him talk 2 times. Which
Where
was,
were you when you
I was
heard
in
him? talk?
Pasadena, California.
I'm sorry, you've heard.
Dr. Martin. Luther
Dr.
King.
Martin Luther King,
Oh.
2 times, met him.
I've heard of.
Now, remember, this was a time when in Utah, there were billboards that said he was a womanizer, he was communist. I mean, the FBI, the John Birch Society was going crazy about him. And I remember telling my mother that my boyfriend and I were going to hear him. And she said, oh, I don't know if you should do that. I mean, it really scared her because she thought, number 1, he was Black. And number 2, she'd heard all these things about him. So I was transfixed. He spoke for 2 hours. That's like a state conference. And it was like,
One guy.
it was like 10 minutes. I was just, and the music and everything. And what I felt in my heart then, I had no idea I'd had 10 kids of color. I had no idea I teach classes on racism or that I present stuff at the Child Welfare League of America on raising children when you're not of their race, which is a total disadvantage. True?
Do it just fine.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm
What
putting
did Jesse say?
Yeah,
He
Jesse,
said it.
tell it like it is about white privilege. I mean, duh, you
Well-
just got fired by a bigot.
Oh, no.
We
I
don't care
know,
about that.
I know.
Oh,
I care.
Well, being raised in Utah by white parents is an interesting thing because you're caught between 2 worlds. You're not necessarily, well, you're not accepted because in white society because, well, you're Black. And then in the Black diaspora or society, you're not because you don't get many of the nuances of Black culture. A lot of people don't understand that Black people, we had to make up our own culture as we kind of went. There's no handbook, so that's something that we all had to kind of learn on our own. And Suzanne did a great job, but there are certain things that she just couldn't teach. Nothing wrong with that.
I couldn't teach you. Well, my black
Thank you.
grandson just got tailed yesterday in a supermarket. He bought a drink for himself. And then he went with his girlfriend and her mother to buy some things. And he got picked up just like that by security. that thought he'd stolen the drink.
Mm.
Now, it's like my son who was stopped for driving down Redwood Road in his truck, he wasn't doing one thing wrong. Now, you and I know that if we hadn't signaled for 3 seconds, the police wouldn't even. It wouldn't be a blip on their machine. You know, in fact, my son had just been, before my son was picked up 2 weeks previous, he was stopped, my brother was, with no glasses, and he's supposed to wear them, an expired license and an expired registration. And he told me the policeman said, "Hey, Mr. Gardner, you need to get those things checked." Now, do you want to tell what happened to you when you had an expired license in Idaho?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I don't want to turn this into.
No,
that's okay.
it's real, honey. We're just trying to be honest here.
No, it was on Christmas Eve and, I spent Christmas in jail up in, Idaho, which isn't the funnest place for someone that looks like me. But yeah, I just didn't have it on me. I actually had car insurance, I just didn't have it on me, and it was, car got impounded and I was in jail Christmas.
And that's expensive.
Yeah. It was-
Well, we could, this isn't a place to air these things because everybody can do it. And what I've learned is Black people are better doing it, of course, than I am. I would never. The only thing I'm good at is helping white parents who have never realized their privilege get a clue about what their kids are going to go through. And it was very painful many times because these parents didn't believe. They called me an alarmist. They said, if you were, one lady told me, because her son came up for a post-placement visit, he'd been placed from an agency in Philadelphia. This dear little, he was 4 years old when I did the home study. So I took him down to the barbershop and had them do a Michael Jordan Nike sign in his hair and fix him up a little. He had nappy hair, you know, his skin looked all ashen. Oh, that mother was so mad at me. She said, it's people like you that stir up things. If you just leave him alone, there wouldn't be a problem. I got told off a lot of times, but you know, it's okay because they've eaten their words and come to thank me. By the way, this is why I'm overweight. I've eaten so many words. No, but people catch on. All it takes is experience and exposure, and they catch on to white privilege. Now, one time, Jesse, I wasn't gonna bring this up, honey, but one time, well, I did mention it here. I was just sitting and all the police knocked, they came into the home, they had guard dogs and they surrounded our yard because Jesse had just robbed a store. Well, he was at football practice.
And 8th grade.
And
Great.
but you know, somebody identified him. So we've had a bazillion of those things happen, and so has every other, you know, so I don't want to make a big deal about it. Just that I took it upon myself to educate a lot of the adoptive parents that this would be happening to them. And that's nothing on me. It's just I happened to be there. I did it for the Koreans, I did it for Kazakhstan, I did it for India, I did it for China. Because these kids weren't being, you know, they have a past, they had a history, they had a culture. And I started an East Indian camp with the help of many other parents. I didn't do this alone. And because I remember when I was doing the home study for the family, and I said, why did you choose to adopt from India? And he said, well, because of the squalor and the bad. He just gave this really negative view of India, and he was glad he could get a kid out of there. And I thought, oh my heck, think of the culture of India, 800 languages and dialects and the music and Ravi
clothing,
Shankar and
food.
Tagore and you're gonna what? So that's why a bunch of us got together and started these camps. And in 1981, a group of us, there were 4 groups of parents, 2 couples, we got together and started Wednesday's Child. Now back then, Wednesday's Child, I answered that phone in my home. I hosted the parents, the caseworkers that came in with the children. In fact, I ended up adopting one at age 18. That was a Wednesday's Child that nobody called on. But we brought him home and we got to know him. He's been in the psych ward. He'd been in residential treatment for 14 years.
Did you say 14?
He was put into care at age 4. But we got to know him and it was a family vote. I don't want you to think I'm totally nuts. I mean, I know I'm coming across as a nut,
That's
but,
right.
but we all voted.
I'm not fixing you dinner in for a week unless you say
Yeah,
yes.
let's say- No, the kids are the ones that said, well, what, he's gonna age out? Of course, we're gonna take him. Because he was Korean black and I have a Korean daughter who was going to come tonight, but she's sick. Anyway, point being that I did those things. Was not well equipped. I was dealing with all this other stuff, but I just did it.
Well, what is that, you know, as I hear this, there's a lot of things that I would have in my head go, I'm not equipped, I can't do that, I'm not going there, but you crossed that,
Somebody had
That
to do it for
boundary,
those kids.
so it was
We
kind of your
had to do it for
concern
the
and
kids.
care. pulled
So
you
they would be
into that.
raised in this white Wasatch Front range when they come from India and Pakistan and Korea.
I'm not talking about just that, I mean, you
Oh.
personally adopting 10 kids total, that none of them were, you know, like babies easy to
No, the
start with.
teenagers weren't. But you know what? Anybody here adopted? Okay,
Right?
so adoption's a lifelong
Adopt.
journey. You know that.
Yeah.
Whether you know your birth parents or not. You know, we have 26 siblings in my family of the children I adopted. 26 of their siblings that were placed into care and they were adopted separately. I mean, Jesse was adopted, but he had other siblings. Lily was adopted. She has 6 other siblings. We went back to East St. Louis a couple of years ago and met them. My son in prison has 7 other siblings. I'm just saying, now I consider these family.
Mhm.
So I'm a real stickler about we don't go to heaven in these little units. Because I hope we're gonna all be together
One big happy family.
because they're family. And we have befriended birth mothers. We have befriended these kids. I mean, us to my capacity, which you know is pretty low. Let me tell you, but we've tried to do our best to, you know, help and keep contact. But why did I bring that up? I don't
Well, I
know.
wanted you to talk
Is
about
anybody keeping
Wednesday.
me on?
Wednesdays, I'm trying.
Oh,
I-
Wednesday's child.
But
yeah.
so I appreciate you bringing that up, because I did want, yeah, that's when Jane and I first, I think, met you. And then we didn't know you for years after that, but we did meet you then briefly. when we started
It's
looking
a
to
cruel
adopt.
thing to put a kid on TV.
I don't
And
know if everybody here knows, you all know what.
'Cause it's not
Wednesdays
going
with
anymore,
child-
right?
no, it is on Channel 5,
Oh, is it?
but it was very, very big on Channel 2.
Yeah,
We
that's
used to
where
get
it
300 or 400 calls a week,
So
which
this
I would
was a-
answer in my home.
This would come on after the evening news,
And
right?
they put a child that needed a home,
Yeah,
and
which
they
you
would
would
come from
arrange
the
and,
Rocky Mountain region.
yeah,
And so a lot of times, like I said, they were right in my home and we'd go down for the filming. And I would just die. It was like being a slave on the auction block. Because what if nobody called?
which is why you adopted that one.
It's just so hard. I had the books of waiting kids for computers. So I had like 27 books of waiting kids. See, there are about 450,000 waiting kids in foster care. And at various stages, like my kids are in DCFS custody, 2 of my grandkids. My son and his baby mom are trying to get him back, whether or not they will, whatever, but they will be adopted by that foster parent. So they're at stages, you know, maybe it's a foster adopt, maybe it's just foster. But, and I'm appreciative of people adopting internationally, but I say, wow, there's so many kids here. If people.
Well, I
don't
think
put
you
up their
told us
hearts.
that, because we started looking outside United States. Because of the Romanian orphans, that's what was in the news, and the time we attended a big meeting on that. And then I remember coming to the office, the Rocky Mountain Adoption Exchange, I think, and, you know, looking, I think you might have said something, but that made us think, in this country, there's needs.
Yeah.
And, you know, we would look through these books, kids in New York, just heartbreaking stories, but then even
Oh,
locally,
it's
I mean, we actually
yeah.
found our daughter locally. Our
Yes,
3-year-old
yes.
daughter, so,
So great,
but yeah,
even though it was hard.
yeah.
Anybody listening to me that is an adoptive parent of a special needs kid. Actually, a healthy Caucasian baby can be special needs because of the genetic component and because of lots of other things. Individual can, you know what I mean? Their individual way of looking at the world and blah, 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 blah. So, but anyway, good job.
I haven't done 10.
Well,
That's,
You're not,
I
you
still-
don't have
I'm
cognitive
still,
slippage
so
either.
still, what is it that gets you? I mean, you have done remarkable
No, I
things.
haven't really.
With a lot of adversity, and
Yeah.
I'm sensing it might be this deep compassion. I remember, was it 2 years ago, I came to your house for dinner, Jane and I think Giles and Ann were there, I can't remember. Anyway, you had adopted a blind cat that could not walk. And it would scoot itself along your floor, and I'm going, this woman is already all over the
Oh.
valley
People
helping
would
African
do that.
refugees.
People would do
And
that.
you adopt this cat to take care of.
Oh,
I
well,
mean, it kind of blew my mind.
No.
Because the cat would make a mess. I mean, because it couldn't go to the litter box and yet you took that cat in.
well.
I forgot, did it not have a spine or something or?
It has spine, it couldn't
Neurological
walk.
damage,
Yeah.
so it could only scoot,
It's a good scoop,
because it didn't have, anyway.
but it was blind too.
But I named her after the best detective on TV, Vera. Hope you guys all watch Vera. She's the best. Anyway.
So I have a question.
Yes,
So, and I've known you for a long time, I fall apart, like, I have to be careful because I take on too much and then I crash. And then I've left people that I've made commitments to hanging, that breaks my heart.
and that's more normal. That's more like the rest of
I've never
us.
been called one. That is good, but I've wondered so many times. How you just take it, like do one more thing. It's so hard for me to comprehend. How you just
Oh,
keep
no,
that
no.
going.
I think one of the greatest things for me has been the suffering after my divorce. And the suffering of seeing my kids suffer with some of the disabilities and the mental illnesses and the mental challenges. It gave me such a community of suffering for these refugees and for the LGBTQ people that I helped adopt.
Can I
Because
step in and say
you
something?
just have this commonality of suffering and you bond. And I understood after my divorce, and the first people that showed up, well, many dear friends did it, and of course my siblings, but were my Cambodian refugees. And hugging me and lighting incense and bringing statues of Buddha because they know suffering. Being gang raped and buried in pits and having the Khmer Rouge. I mean, same with the Africans, they know suffering. So I feel that sense, and I felt it with the gay brothers and sisters that I've been able to help.
Yeah, talk about that. How did that happen?
I was just a podunk social worker in the early 90s. Running my agency, trying to help kids that wouldn't have had families. We just did mainly special needs. In other words, little boy in Brazil that had no arms or legs, or people with cleft palates, or kids with heart diseases in India and China. Kids missing limbs. That was my connection to Shriners, who I really put on my level. Anyway, and I got a call from two men, Tom and Bart. And they said, we're living together, but we really feel strongly we want to adopt. Will you help us? So I went into their home, got to know them, good jobs, great home, really nice relationship. And I said, okay, you bet I'll help you. Because why wouldn't I? Look, I was like the worst parent ever at that time. I mean, I was trying my best, but I was failing in lots of areas. And I thought they could provide a better home than I could. So the catch was, you couldn't cohabit if you were going to adopt.
And if you're gay, you couldn't marry then.
Right,
So you're in that
2014.
tough.
So I looked
Well,
into the laws, and I was state relief study president then, but I didn't see one conflict. Because we were already having cluster groups of gay and lesbian people in my area. I live near Liberty Park, 9th and 9th. We, at that time, had the largest population of queer in the state. I don't know what it is now, but back then. So we actually reached out as my relief society and had groups once a month for them to come to and we would talk.
Mm.
So anything I've done, I didn't do it as well, but now it's being done better.
So how'd you get around that law?
Yeah,
So I
They
had
get
them
them a
sign a
copy.
paper
That-
that they weren't, that they would cohabit while I was dealing with them. And I told them all, I'm not gonna come peek in your bedroom. So you're on your honor. But
so
if-
while the process of
while
adoption.
the
is going-
process of adoption.
And then after that,
And while, if you had the right, you know, you had to have references and you had to have criminal and child abuse clearance. You had to have medical clearance. I had to do an inspection of their home, blah, blah, blah. Talk to them about parenting techniques, which I was really bad at myself. But, and so I approved them. And we found an agency back east who had a birth mother that chose them. I love birth mothers' instincts. They know where they want those babies to go. That's such a sacred thing. I don't know if there's any birth mothers in this room, but it's when I dealt with tons of them, I took tons of their relinquishments, and half the time I wanted to talk them into getting the resources to keeping their children, because I don't always think adoption's a good thing. But they made it through the process. And Bart, I can talk about them because we've been interviewed before about this. He's from Star Valley, Wyoming. I always thought the first time they took that little black girl home to Star Valley, Wyoming, a gay couple taking a black baby
Man.
to Star Valley,
A
Wyoming.
girl, a baby.
That's
we
where I
thought
was
you
born.
had-
But they moved back east. They moved back east when the kids, they adopted another one, then they moved back east, and those kids have done so well. One of them sings on Broadway, another one is, and Tom and Bart are still together. Well, how, I can't say that about my marriage. So I did get some. Is it flack, what's the word from people?
Black.
Black.
Cause I started doing
You didn't get
this.
much slack. I'm sure you got a lot of slack.
I said, well, how do you do this? They can't go to the temple. And I said, well, you know, I've got 3 kids that can't be adopted. Or can't
Go to
be
the
sealed
temple,
in the
yeah.
temple. And my marriage is over, so duh, it was a temple marriage. So what do I care about that? And I don't mean to be rude about that. I mean, I was just in the temple yesterday. Those things are very sacred if you believe that way. But that wasn't gonna stop me from having a child have a good home, for heaven's sakes. And having them have a parenting experience. Because they have the very same instincts that we do. They just want to parent. So that's where it started. And then word got out that I would do it, and I had to do some pretty fancy footwork. And I'm not a dancer, so that was, it took a lot. No, especially from same sex, you know, lesbians that wanted to adopt from China or Kazakhstan or.
You gotta
Because
get a law changed or made, right? Didn't you
Well,
work with
we-
the legislature to,
eventually,
remember?
yeah,
Yeah.
we did so that if you're married. But. I don't know, I never felt guilty, I never felt like Heavenly Father wasn't happy with what I was doing. Or Heavenly Mother, because these women wanted to be mothers,
and these men wanted to
and the
be
men wanted to be
fathers.
fathers.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I had to do some real. Sometimes they say we just can't do it, and I remember going over to some lesbians, they're very well known in the community because they're top realtors. And I said, do you really want to be mothers? And they said, yes, more than anything. I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. So I would just lay it out for them. Not to be dishonest, I never broke any laws. You know, I always did it totally according to the law. But we
So
did it.
what do you say to members of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints and even some other Christian mainstream religions that go, that just is so wrong, because you know, they're supposed to have a male and female parent.
There's
I mean,
million
plenty
ways.
in our church that feel that way. you
Oh,
know,
totally.
And so.
But you make
when-
up for it like we do with everything. I mean, you make up by having role models of the opposite sex. I mean, my kids had uncles, they had neighbors, they had scout leaders, they had coaches. You know, you make up for it. Nothing's ideal.
I think that's the
Right?
most important thing, right? I
And
mean,
people can
our
do
scriptures are full of non-ideal families.
Exactly, duh. So anyway, that was why I was the Grand Marshal of the Pride Festival.
2 years ago. That was fun.
Because they, some of those people got together and nominated me. But I didn't even think anything of it. I
Did you bring
confess.
that short speech? Because I wanted you to bring that speech that you gave.
No, I just was gonna give a long speech. No.
She, at the Capitol, the open gay pride parade, she gave a lovely, I don't know, like 3 or 4 minutes, 2 minutes, I don't know. It was not very long, but it was very profound. Beautiful speech.
It was
on the
just
Capitol
telling, I
steps.
just said there was absolutely no reason for me not to help gay and lesbian people. I mean, the old notions of them being contagious and not being able to parent as well as we can, that's just so stupid. And so,
So maybe that's what you're doing, is where I will find reasons not to do things. To the extent that you do, you just say there's no reason. There's no reason not to help a Cambodian refugee. There's no reason not to adopt this child. There's no good reason to not adopt this queer couple. You somehow push past.
well, I wasn't very
These-
smart,
we-
but I could see how
Everybody's-
sincere they were. You know, and the parenting books they read and the way they prepared their home. And then I just got a lovely card from a lesbian couple that I placed with. The kids are now 7 and 9. But I remember at that time, they worked out their work schedules, so one of them would be home with the children they adopted.
Mm.
And they did swing shifts. Well, how many parents do
Mm.
that? I mean, you know what I mean? Because they wanted to, the basic thing with me is, I have a lot of things wrong with me but I have empathy. That's my greatest trait. I have empathy. And so all those kids waiting in the system, oh, if I could do one to get one placed, I did it. If I could help one refugee. Now, I might point out, and I hate to bring so much attention to Giles and Ann, but they help a refugee family.
For
Just
years.
volunteered to do it. I gave them the family. They've been brilliant. They've done what they could, right?
Yeah.
She's carried it. I've been,
But so have you. So it just
Carry the
shows you
bucket.
that everybody can do something. If we could get, my son that was homeless for 7 years, if we just could have got somebody to mentor him, a family. But then you look around and so many families have problems. They don't want any more problems. And there's all sorts of illnesses. One thing that I've been very lucky at, not cognitively, but physically. You've never seen me sick in bed, right? I've never been in bed a day in my life, sick. Now I've had surgeries. I had, toes amputated, knee replacements, but I've had very remarkable health. So that has helped. Plus I have all those ancestors pulling for me. They think I'm a total pinhead, but I think that they're probably pulling for me. Plus I have good siblings and friends.
And kids.
No, I adore my kids and we're like the whatever of misfit toys in Toy Story. But that's okay, isn't it?
So
We
you
help
talked,
each other.
Suzanne, you talked about the foundational things of why you have stayed engaged with the LDS Church. But when there's a number of things that you've come across that, they don't meet your ethics, they don't. So how have you managed
Well,
to still
in the
stay
sixties,
very
I didn't go
active?
to church. I didn't go for 2 years because I was so mad about the black doctrine. I cannot tell you how upset I was. My uncle was a professional athlete. And he was so upset when he retired. And he would tell me stories about going with the team. And he could be able to go to this motel, but the blacks wouldn't be able to go. I remember I was just young. This is the 60s. I graduated from high school in 63. And I just said, really? We didn't have information like we do now. And I couldn't even believe that. Of course, then I got reading and, after To Kill a Mockingbird, all sorts of things, and Dr. King. And after I heard Dr. King, I got involved in civil rights. And so then I got smart. But it caused a lot of problems in Utah. There were rumors going around BYU of these busloads of blacks coming in from LA that were going to rape us all, or we'd have to be pregnant on the front lines, or all these stupid things.
Wow.
And that really distressed me. These unkind things, because I had black friends by then. And I was very upset. So what I didn't understand is why the general authorities didn't get the same inspiration I did.
Yeah,
No, I really am being very
Well, there's a
serious.
number of people that felt
I
that
know,
way.
they should get it much quicker than I. This is destroying our society and our church. And this blatant racism that's so entrenched in people. It's just giving them license, like, can I say the T word here? Trump, or I shouldn't say that. Like he's done. So, and don't ever say to me, well, culturally, it just wasn't done back then. Well, of course it was. I wasn't even smart. I had a pretty remedial education at Clearfield. I did sort of well at BYU. Actually, I didn't do that well at BYU, but when I went back after because I was protesting too much. We started a folk club, my boyfriend and I, singing club and blah, 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 blah. But I'll tell you how the Lord blessed me. Serious, I'm being serious. I went back to school after my divorce because I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do to support 10 kids. So my family, my wonderful siblings said, well, we'll help you go back to school. They helped me get a car. Remember that little car? So I could drive back and forth to BYU. I got straight A's at BYU.
See?
It's
You
a
are
miracle.
smart.
No, I'm not at all. It was totally a miracle. It was life experience. It was life experience that helped me get good grades, but there's no other reason. But that's just the kind of help I've received. And when my first son was called on a mission and they said, oh, the blessing, Sister Stott of a mission. Well, 2 of my kids went to jail. Had 2 daughters get pregnant out of wedlock. I had a flood. I had a car. Anyway, I thought, wow, these are such great
During the mission.
During the mission. But guess what? I stayed healthy and kept my faith. And I thought, well, then that's my blessing.
I like that. You know, another thing I think that has helped you be who you are is when, even from a young age, like with the Palestinians and then with the gays, and if you hear something, just because it comes from an authority figure, you haven't just taken that at face value. You go do the research, you go investigate, you're curious, and then you stay true to what you feel instead of going, well, these authority figures said it, so I guess I just need to fall in line. You didn't just fall in line.
No,
You followed your empathetic, compassionate, smart heart
no.
and did those wonderful things.
But I,
That's a great, I think it's a
maybe
great
being
lesson.
raised with 7 brothers.
You're the only
That
girl?
made me kind of tough for 16 years.
Oh, gosh.
That made me, but you know, like the ERA. No, you're not old enough. But in the 70s, it actually came down from the
Yes.
headquarters of the church.
Yeah, some of us are plenty
That we
old.
were supposed to go downtown and protest it.
Yeah, Sonia
It's
Johnson.
a true thing, isn't it, Ed? Do you
Yes.
remember?
That was just crazy.
It was the rumors going around. Nobody even knew what it was.
But there was a good percentage of LDS people who just thought it was crazy.
Right, and I was one of them. I said, are you kidding? I'm totally for it. Why would I go down there? So all along there have been, I don't want to say, because I'm not that kind of a thinker. Really, people talk all the time of going back in time and all this history, and I just want to go back to 2001 and watch Lord of the Rings on the big screen. That's my time travel. I don't care about. No, of course I do, but not really. The main thing is watching Lord of the Rings on a big screen. That's my time travel.
Okay, but
Yeah, have another
other
question.
people should be asking.
I agree.
questions.
Just because you're old.
No, you can ask another
Or-
question and
or-
anybody else can ask a
Okay,
question.
so
too.
I'm really kind of more agnostic these days, and I'm wondering how often, you said you've had help from heavenly parents, right? In your work with,
I think I've had inspiration.
so when you're placing a
Sometimes.
child in those days with a gay couple, did you ever feel like, hey, you think what you want, but the Lord is doing this?
Oh, I had to tell people, I had to say, I feel totally good about this. And, oh no, I stood up to many people,
And because you
especially
felt
social
that,
workers.
But you felt. that.
Yes, because obviously, duh, they needed to be parents. And they met all the
There's lots of people with
requirements.
PhDs that they can't see that, they can't grasp this,
Well-
that you can see so clearly, unfortunately.
No,
They
I
don't-
didn't
they
have
don't see it.
any. And I don't want you
They
to
don't
think
feel
that
it.
I have all these manifestations all the time.
No, but just
It's usually
that
because I've
too.
eaten too much salsa. But I know the difference. But I do know the difference. When I was called the one time a state relief study president the first time, I had the most clear direction of who my counselors should be. It was like right in the room, somebody said, I didn't even know these women. And I've had too many of those experiences. Now I've had a lot of really rotten experiences. When my daughter was raped and my grandson died, you know what I mean? I've had a bunch of rotten ones. But somehow it's always balanced out that I feel more positive. And you can either believe Darlene Young or Garth Brooks, or who's that poet that said, God just asked us to dance with him, come dance with me, those 4 words. What's his name? Reza, wait, I wrote it down because of course I can't remember. What is his name?
Contemporary.
Hafiz. He's a Hafiz.
I've
I've got
heard
several of his poems at home. So me,
Is it
I
Persian,
just think
Papa?
probably Persian. And Garth Brooks' his famous song of Darlene and her Young, famous poem. I just say we have to keep dancing. That's my philosophy. Keep dancing, because Heavenly Father's always gonna try to get you on the dance floor every
I
day.
like that.
And that's what I try to do, is to get on the dance floor. And I bungle a million times a day, but I believe in this time through with the Book of Mormon, I'm having the best time. You'd think I was a new convert. I'm just loving the Book of Mormon this time. And all of these insights from all these brilliant people that give us these podcasts. And I'm just falling in love with it. Whereas the last time I read it, I was so aware of, the patriarchy. I could hardly enjoy it. And now this time through, so I don't know if I'm losing my mind or what's happening, but I sure love it this time through.
Anybody have
Sorry.
other questions of any kind or comments? Again, this is discussion group, so.
I'll ask.
Yeah.
My wife and I were talking this in the car way over here. It seems like as those of us from the Latter-day Saint community, sometimes the path of discipleship is to follow your own call, which is in conflict with the generally accepted mores of the community. And you seem to have struck a really healthy balance between those two. Because it is, some of what you do when you follow that call, paradoxically, following God's call comes at the expense of your status in that community. And it's a challenging balance to keep.
It
but
is,
you
and
seem
I
to-
agree with you.
You seem to have found a really good balance there. I'm curious. if
I've
you've got
had to
any
do it
insight
for
on that.
years, brother, as I went off to church and left, numerous kids home that didn't want to go to church with me, or I have kids that really drink a lot. I have problems with alcoholism, different things, and drugs. So I've just learned to, I don't even know. I've just learned to balance and try to think that Heavenly Father's gonna make it all better. Someday, better things to come. I really believe that. We'll have more light and knowledge, and so I have a hard time. And my kids know, they'll say oftentimes, is this for us, or are you taking this to your Africans?
Yeah.
Now, let me just point out, I have not done, my kids have helped me so much with the refugees all along since '84. My siblings have helped, my nieces and nephews have helped, dear friends have helped. I have mainly just been a catalyst, saying so-and-so needs this. We gotta get this couch over to so-and-so, so-and-so needs this washer and dryer. We've gotta help this person,
Yeah,
and
but you go actually to a lot of these things.
I do.
You're in those homes. a lot.
I do. Oh, I'm there most every day.
Yeah.
But I drove down from the area above 13th East on 13th South. What is that area called? Up where the Huntsmans live. I was up in that area a couple of months ago. I'm sure this person had $1 billion. And then I got a call that one of our community refugees was drunk somewhere in West Valley, didn't know where she was and didn't have a coat. And I thought, don't we just live in parallel universes, all of us? We all do, you know? So here I've just left this palatial whatever, and I'm driving around West Valley. My sister was with me. She stopped and bought a coat for this woman. We searched all over for hours trying to find out where she was because it was so cold. And now we did find her and we've got her into a shelter. She's living in a shelter we can't find a home for because of her alcoholism. There's just all of these problems, but everybody deals with these kinds of things.
But
I just deal with it a lot.
But I don't know, I was thinking, as I took your question, what if you had done something that was different enough that they stripped you of your calling? And
I
because
wouldn't
you
have to pay
had-
tithing.
But you wouldn't have
I didn't mean to be flippant.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? That you have had callings that show that you're respected, so you, is that the kind of?
Yeah, that
status-
confirms what she's doing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's clear.
is that what you were asking her about, or?
Well, I think to be recognized in your faith community as someone that can be trusted and accepted, there's a certain cultural expectation.
Yeah,
And sometimes when you're pressing on some of these issues that are trying to kind of move our world and society forward, those things come into conflict. And
Yeah.
so
they do,
you
they
become
do.
sometimes, not this has ever happened to me. Sometimes become perceived as, he's not really quite one of us, he's kind of another.
Yeah.
And
But I've always
And
had a
I've
church calling.
experienced that, and I'll just tell you that I think it's harder for men. Because we tend to have the callings, the bigger callings, so. I have a kind of experience that I'm not as safe as your traditional
Yeah.
person, so I'm not asked to do the things I used to get asked to do.
Really?
Because of that, I think, and that's okay, because I felt called to be where I am, and I'm. Still, after 7 years, delighted and happy to be serving in, this African refugee branch. And especially to get to
He's
to
amazing.
know Suzanne. I am nothing amazing.
Oh, okay.
Peter's
then.
amazing and Michelle's amazing.
That's true.
They're amazing. They've been there as long for longer than I have.
But-
Murder any kids.
Yeah.
One thing I've always believed in, and this may not go well, I've always believed in having a calling. No matter how tough my life is, a kid in uni or my mother dying or somebody in prison, and it would conflict with visiting my son in prison, whatever, I've always believed in having a calling. Because it keeps me engaged, and then I can get to know the people in the, I even love cleaning the church, that's how corny I am. Just take some music and go clean the church. And these things where women worry about, oh, like Armin gives me a rash or whatever, I never even, those things are there's just so many other important things. And getting to know people and love them. If you have a calling, you are more likely to do that. And it keeps you very humble. I just was nursery leader. I signed up to be nursery leader because the kids were running around. I loved it. And here I'm so old and decrepit, but I just had the best time. Because it's so much your attitude. Well, you guys all know this.
Other questions or thoughts?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
So I had a question. I'm in school to be a
A little louder if you can.
sorry, I'm in school to be a social worker. She companies as well. And
Great.
I'm curious, you said one of your main strengths is being empathetic, and I've noticed that's one of my actual strengths that I've been blessed with as well. But I'm curious how you've balanced all this pain and not taken all of it on, because I think one of the things I'm really scared about in the social work is that I'm going to take on all of these problems that I want to help, but I know that in reality, probably not able to solve the majority of them.
Hey, good for you guys. Cause see, my degree was in Hebrew and political science. I didn't even know it. I mean, I knew it sort of, but when I became a single parent, I realized I'd been doing volunteer work with Wednesday's Child and all this stuff, teaching classes for WACAP, just volunteer, cause I'd adopted. And I realized that's where my heart was. So I had to go back and get the credentials. So you're way, way ahead of me. Do you know what? I've always balanced, and my kids can tell you. I mean, April Fools is my national holiday. Star Trek, I read books, like I'm
She's
excited.
in love with Paul
I'm
Newman.
in love with Paul Newman, which that shows I'm
taste.
really smart. So I'm going home to read a fabulous gritty mystery. I read really gritty mysteries. I haven't been able to think celestial till I get through with all these books. And then I can start. But you keep a balance, and that's how you do it. And you trust God. They're all in God's hands,
But how did you
and
figure out
Heavenly
that
Mother's.
balance? Is it just like through life experience?
Oh, because I've just always been a lover of life. I've always loved poetry. I've always loved music. Was musically involved for years, not anymore.
She's in her own little band.
You know, you keep a good balance there so that you don't lose who you are. And
Things that nourish you and fill you and feel you
that
pure.
nourish you, whether it's going to the sun tunnels or Shakespeare or whatever you do, you keep that because there's too much suffering. If I thought about it, what's going on in Gaza right now and Ukraine and Congo has another civil war.
And Syria's still
I
rebuilding from
wouldn't
the
eat the
earthquake.
hot fudge sundae that I want to eat on the way home. So I kind of think, no, I compartmentalize a lot. No, I'm kidding. But you'll do just great because you're gonna have such a great education and you're so needed. Oh my gosh.
Ed had a thought.
Ed? Oh, wait, let's get,
Go ahead.
okay.
Well, Chris and I are involved in some of the refugees from Venezuela and Congo and.
Great.
One of the things that we're tempted to do is give them stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And, well, I am tempted, okay? And she reins me in a little bit because, you know, the balance between, giving and teaching, okay? Where do you draw the line?
You know, we
you
have
wanna
so
feed them the
much.
fish rather than.
What I've learned
Okay.
is don't give them stuff. I learned that from my Cambodian refugees. Teach them how to use their stove, ride a bus, get their driver's license, learn English. Those are the most valuable things you can do because when you give them stuff, they become entitled. And they think that they don't have to work as hard.
Okay,
And
so
that's
you
better.
learned that lesson. It's hard
Yeah.
for me to learn that lesson.
Oh, because you have empathy. I mean, when I think, wait, you were buried in a pit with your father on top of you. Oh, here, let me give you my coat. I mean, you just want to do everything for them because they've suffered so horribly. But then real love is helping them be able to take care of themselves in this crazy cement jungle they live in
Thank you.
America.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah.
And this was not so much a question, but a comment, and I think it struck me as you were asking this question. Your sense of humor is so much a part of maintaining that levity, I'm sure. Because it is that empathy can be such a burden sometimes.
Yeah.
But maintaining that levity about life and things, I think is really key, like maintaining a sense of humor. And I'm sure that that's taken its own skill in a lot of ways, is developing that and maintaining it. And
Thank
being able to laugh about things that, sometimes we want to cry about,
Oh,
or
totally.
that we think is like too reverent to laugh about. We have all these rules about things we can or can't find funny, and I find it very refreshing to hear you kind of giggle about silly things and be silly sometimes, because I think we think if we're doing serious work, we need to be serious people all the time. But I think that actually undermines the work in a lot of ways, because
That's
it's
a
not
good insight.
real.
Yeah.
Get that. Anybody else?
You don't teach
Oh, yes.
classes on that, or that would be fun. How to see the humor in disaster.
Yeah. Taylor?
I wonder if you have a spiritual practice that helps power all this effort, or if the service itself is a spiritual practice for you,
Or both?
or both, maybe, yeah.
Oh, well, I always pray and I always, I mean, I go to the temple because I sometimes don't find a lot of meaning there, but I want to, because it's so emphasized. So I keep going back, and sometimes that's helpful. And I always read the scriptures, and I listen to lots of good podcasts and read lots of good books. That's probably my practice, but I have to say lately it's been Chile Rellenos. Because
That's my
chili
favorite.
with,
Those are my favorite.
because one time I was dealing, and Jesse and Lil know, this one son who's mentally, it's not his fault, he was banged with a cast iron kettle when he was 4 years old, and it gave him brain damage. So he's the one that's been on the streets. And I love him dearly, but he's very, very difficult. And after one particular day recently, I called my one daughter and said, "Oh my gosh, I've just spent 17 hours, blah, blah, blah." And she said, "Mom," sorry, she uses that language, but she said, "Give it up, just go get a real Yano." And so I did, I felt a lot better. So that's my newest thing, is chili with Yanos. I mean, I have to find things, and I just assume our heavenly parents say, let's give her some slack.
Slack.
No more flag.
Not more flack. I don't need any more flack.
Where are the best chili reading?
Now, listen, guess
That's
what?
what-
I've gone all over the valley. And they are right down the street at Cancun Cafe on 39th and 9th.
They are pretty good.
They're my favorites.
Maria's has pretty good ones.
So you probably know.
Yeah, as a vegetarian, that's primarily what I eat when I go Mexican.
I can't, like I said, why would Jay have a friend like me even? He gets up and runs.
And you go, why wouldn't I have a friend like her, man? I'm so
You're very
lucky.
kind
I
in
am
how I rash
so,
you.
so lucky. Now, you also protest, one more thing, you also protest the Vietnam War.
Oh, big time. That's why I put Vietnam books on my, I don't know why I did that. You see, I have these, like I said, cognitive slippage. I don't know why I put all those Vietnam books, but it was a really important thing when I was younger. That we were going away to this war that was total propaganda. They were not bothering us. They were not going to come and attack us.
No threat.
They were no threat, the Viet Cong. And yet we got involved over there, and I had kids in my high school class die. And then I had people my age come home.
That's
So damaged beyond belief by the trauma and the heinous things that they had to do. And so I didn't get suspended for long, but I got suspended from BYU for a while because we protested the war. And then in California, of course, I participated in, but.
And yet you stay in the church despite all
Well,
these
because that has nothing to
contradictions.
do with the Savior. Seriously, I really mean it. You connect as a single parent. What have I? I haven't got a man to go to heaven with. Well, sure, Paul Newman's waiting.
Even Shelley Reno.
No, he's happily married. I'm just joking. Gerard Manley Hopkins, though, was apparently celibate.
Yeah, pretty sober.
No, when you get to be my age and you realize that living alone, which I'm never really alone, I have people with me all the time. But it's okay, you're in good company. And if I were in love, it would be different. So those of you that are married and love your spouse, that's fabulous. I really think that's so wonderful. But I don't miss that because I don't have it. And so, why did I say all this? What was my point? Lil? She doesn't know either.
You were saying your relationship with Christ.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Directly up.
After my divorce, I thought, oh, phooey. He was supposedly this wonderful whatever, and he was.
Mhm.
And then he changed. And it was very painful for me to even see couples holding hands in the park. I went through that stage, which I think a lot of people do. And I said to my brother, one of my brothers, well, I think it's okay. I'm just going to take up my garments and I'm going to leave the church for a while to save the marriage because of the 10 kids. And so he, of course, sent me right down to visit with somebody. And I was really appreciative of that. And he suggested I focus on the initiatory, and if you know what that is, it doesn't matter. But I've always done that since then. I've always just thought, hey, this is my salvation. I'm just gonna do my best. Like I said, stay on the dance floor as long as I can. And see how things come out. I have no assurance of anything. I want you to know that. When I see the Webb telescope photos, I think that I'm just a little pond span micro down here. But I just struck with the wonder of God, and I think, well, someday we're gonna appreciate what our heavenly parents did to create this world. I want to learn from them.
Beautiful. Any other? We're just about out of time. Anything else?
But you let her finish what she's written.
Oh, no, that,
Oh, yeah, she's,
the only thing I wrote, I
but if
just
you
made a
do have
list.
any closing
I made the
statements.
list of all those horrible things that no, I'm just kidding. That sounded so corny.
No, I didn't.
But I
It was
appreciate you being
fantastic.
kind when I listed all those things, because those,
Those
as
are
Jesse
painful.
knows, those are heartaches that we have endured together as a family. And well, where some people don't see us as really the most functional family in the world, I see us as pretty amazing because we've stuck together and supported each other. And like I said, we have all these siblings that weren't adopted in my family that are out there too. And so I like what Patrick Mason said, you know, it's just gonna kind of work out up there with humankind. Don't you think? We're all gonna understand each other better. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but I believe it. One of my dear friends who is gay, he has told me he's gonna be really angry if he becomes straight in heaven.
I've heard that before.
And I have
Heard that.
many trans friends, we have them in my family, extended family, that are really now who they think they are, and they are gonna be really angry if they're switched. So I don't know about all that. I don't know what's gonna work out. I think we're gonna be pleasantly surprised. And I love this line from Lord of Harvest, grant that we wholesome green and pure may be. And that's really hard for me since I read such pretty novels. But I'm trying. I rationalize so much in the things I read.
David McKay, all
I'm
things are pure.
Your
pure
Heavenly
at heart.
Father understands. I've had a hard day. But I love this, nothing like that Brother Saban said in last conference. I thought that was so profound. When nothing is expected and everything is appreciated, life is magical.
So,
Oh, man, I love Jay. So thanks for being
you
so
can
kind.
see why I wanted her so
No,
bad.
no.
Because it was such a delightful evening and such an enriching, really, you said a lot of profound things with a great sense of humor.
Well, let me share my favorite mysteries writers. And then I'll know I've evenly given them something. I'm serious.
I got my.
She's got her pen out.
She's ready.
Okay, James Lee Burke. John Sanford. Michael Connolly. Adrian McKenty.
I don't think
Ian
you said
Rankin.
shorthand.
I'll
Who was
text
this
it to
last
you.
one?
Ian Rankin. I've got him everywhere. It would take me too long because I don't know anything about hardly anything, but I do know mystery writers.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being so kind.
Oh,
And
no. that was-
Kristen,
what a
I didn't
delight.
even mention that Kristen and I have been getting together for years.
I don't think I knew that. Why didn't I know that?
Well,
I wonder
She
why.
didn't want to
didn't-
tell you.
yeah.
What's that?
Then
What,
why, well, how come?
you
what-
sang
what did you-
together?
Because we had a mutual friend, and I was actually putting together a magazine on families, and I went, oh, I wonder if she would tell her story. And she did, and it was amazing.
And it got published.
Yeah,
Which is
that
scary.
This was years ago.
But this was a million years ago.
Yeah, but see, even then you wanted to have her tell her story because it
No,
was so
Well, I didn't know
remarkable.
it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good story.
yeah.
That was the new when that last teenager came and things were crazy, huh?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine, you have your poem?
Sure.
I'd love to have that, and then we're gonna sing, if you want to get it up and ready. When I asked what song Suzanne loved, it's, well, one of them, she loves a lot of them, but How Great Thou Art, and then she's gonna play.
Or Rock of Ages,
She's gonna
whichever.
play on the
Go
piano to
ahead.
start with, and then we're gonna join in. I mean, She's gonna, so the last verse we'll do a cappella like we normally do, but she's gonna play the first two and sing along.
So. those are the words.
All right, this is in honor of mothers, our mother in heaven and Women's History Month. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So my first collection of poetry was an exploration of the Divine Mother and my own experience becoming a mother, and the connection that I found between the Tree of Life and the Divine Feminine. And some of the poems I re-envisioned key moments in Christendom and Mormondom with the mother present. And this is one of those reimaginings. It's called The Grove. Joseph enters. A beetle leaves a shock of orange through early decay. Dogwood and wild rose rouse under beech and elm. A collective sigh waves the canopy above, dilating the distant blue. From his lips, a cry. Mother, her thousand ears, her thousand eyes, her fragrance suffusing, opens the heavens upon her son, pillar descending. Held to her chest, flat on his back, in the seat of the throne. In her thousand branches adorning the long climb into the milky stars, legs gripping the murky underworld, hosts and hosts and hosts and hosts.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Lovely.
All right.
The only reason I'm playing the piano. Because I lead the choir. The Swahili choir. They sing so beautifully.
Ears every time.
So it's just, no, I don't need anything, I just play it. This is how we do it in the French. I just wanted you to hear it. Because I think it's so gorgeous, it sings this great. So are we doing how good in award? Yeah, do a introduction.
I see the sun.
Oh, it's so much fun. Just keep going.
Now the last verse.
Let's do the last one.
Okay, go ahead and play.
Oh, no, in,
Well, I was, but it's so much fun having you play. Let's keep going.
okay.
Last one.
Okay.
That was fun. I like that. I had wanted to do a cappella. We went back and forth. She said, I got this great way of playing it. It's kind of African, so.
It's the way the Africans do it.
Yeah,
They're
so-
very-
Yeah, they do.
That's all I like. You sold me. So I've asked Bailey Key or Keys? Keys, sorry, Bailey Keys to offer our benediction. If you'd stand up, that'd be great, so. See you there, maybe come a little closer so make sure we hear you. Thanks.
Our Heavenly Parents, we are so very grateful for the opportunity that we have to be here together tonight and to make friends and to be able to learn. And we are so grateful we can come together as a community, and please help us to continue to learn and grow and come together and help us to get home safely tonight. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Ed and Kristen. And all the people who did the music. And Cheryl.